All right, welcome back everyone to another explainer. I am incredibly excited to dive into this one with you today. We're setting the stage for a deep dive into a technology that's literally bridging our physical and digital worlds. Yup, we're talking about the 3D display revolution. For decades now, we've been trying to somehow leap through those flat screens on our TVs and monitors. Well, today, we're going to explore exactly how modern science, human biology, and some really clever computer engineering are finally making that leap a reality.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, the 3D entertainment renaissance. Then, the visual fatigue problem. Third, fixing fatigue with algorithms. Fourth, VR, the ultimate 3D theater. Fifth, beyond movies, practical 3D. And we'll wrap up with the glasses-free future.
Starting off with Section 1, the 3D entertainment renaissance. Now, it's really important to acknowledge that 3D media isn't just some flashy recent trend. It's a visual dream we've actually been chasing for a really long time. Which brings us to a pretty provocative question. One I want you to keep in the back of your mind as we go through this explainer. Is 3D just a cinematic gimmick designed to sell expensive movie tickets? Or is it actually the fundamental future of how we interact with information? Because as you'll see, the tech is pushing boundaries way, way beyond those early experiments in movie theaters.
Just take a look at this timeline here. It's kind of wild. All the way back in 1953, James Maggi premiered his Triorama program, which used this 16mm dual-strip system. Fast forward to 2023, and 3D cinema showed massive post-pandemic recovery, bringing in $1.7 billion with a B in global ticket sales. And now, moving through 2024 and beyond, virtual reality and spatial video are just completely redefining personal immersion. We've gone from these lost experimental film shorts to massive box office numbers and actual spatial tech you can wear on your face.
Moving right along to Section 2, the visual fatigue problem.
So, to understand where 3D is going, we really have to understand the biological hurdle that's basically held it back for years. And the crucial point is this number right here, 54.8%. A really rigorous study with healthy adults found that over half of them, 54.8%, reported discomfort after watching 3D movies. Compare that to just 14.1% for traditional 2D movies. Even crazier, the symptom intensity was 8.8 times higher for the 3D viewers. So look, if we want 3D to be the future, we absolutely have to fix this.
The primary culprit behind all these headaches and the nausea is something called the Vergен's accommodation conflict. Let me break down the biology here, because it's actually fascinating. When you look at an object in the real world, your eyes naturally turn inward to target it. That's Vergence. At the exact same time, the muscles in your eyes change the shape of your lens to focus on it. That's accommodation. In the real world, those two actions are perfectly synced up. But a 3D screen, it tricks your eyes. Your lenses are forced to stay focused on the physical flat screen in front of you, but your eyes are turning inward to track a 3D object that looks like it's floating way closer to you. That unnatural pattern? Yeah, that completely strains your eye muscles.
The geometry of angular disparity is where this physical discomfort becomes a measurable thing. Angular disparity is basically the difference between the angle of your eyes focusing on the display itself versus focusing on the perceived 3D object popping out at you. That gap, that exact mathematical measurement, is where the Vergence accommodation conflict actually happens. When that disparity gets too large, your brain basically just throws its hands up and says, nope, I've had enough.
Which brings us to Section 3, fixing fatigue with algorithms. So, what do? How do we solve a biological problem when we obviously can't upgrade human eyeballs? Well, we turn to computer science. Engineers have developed this brilliant software designed to literally trick our brains into comfort using something called nonlinear disparity remapping. It happens in 3 steps. First, the software predicts fatigue by analyzing the video for high spatial frequency, large disparity magnitude, and fast motion. Second, it takes all that, calculates an overall fatigue score, and automatically adapts the depth range. Third, and this is the genius part, it uses a nonlinear operator. Instead of just flattening out the whole image and ruining the 3D effect, it compresses the depth only in the problematic, high-motion spots while stretching out the depth in the comfortable regions. And this brilliantly illustrates what that workflow looks like visually. On the left side, the system is actively predicting the fatigue. Over on the right, you can actually see the visual compression and stretching of those depth layers happening in real time. Basically, if a digital object is flying at your face way too fast and the math determines it's going to give you a headache, the software automatically pulls it back just slightly into a safe visual comfort zone, all while keeping the background looking beautifully deep. It's quite literally real-time mathematical relaxation for your eyes. All right, Section 4, VR, the ultimate 3D theater. Now that the software is finally catching up, let's talk hardware. Think back to those old 3D TVs from a decade ago. You had to wear those dark, polarizing glasses that made everything look incredibly dim, and you'd constantly see this weird ghosting or crosstalk effect where the left eye's image would bleed over into the right eye. Well, modern VR completely eliminates this. Because a VR headset has two totally separate physical screens, it sends a vibrant, uncompromised image directly to each eye, no bleeding. The picture quality is absolutely flawless, which makes VR the undisputed perfect medium for 3D viewing today.
But hey, if you want to use your VR headset as your own personal IMAX theater, you've got to know how to decode the alphabet soup of 3D video files. Half SBS or side-by-side, that just squishes two images into a standard frame, giving you a much softer picture. Full SBS is way better, giving you full 1080p resolution per eye. But the absolute holy grail, that's the MVC ISO format. This is a perfect, bit-for-bit digital clone of a 3D Blu-ray disc. If you want the uncompromised gold standard of 3D viewing in your headset, that is exactly what you need to look for.
Let's pivot a bit to Section 5, Beyond Movies, Practical 3D.
Because look, this technology isn't just about watching Avatar on your couch. It has massively practical applications. Immersive media is fundamentally transforming entire industries. In medicine right now, surgeons can examine life-size 3D models of anatomy pulled straight from MRI scans, using real-time overlays during robotic surgery for just incredible precision. In engineering, you can literally virtually deconstruct complex circuit boards or walk around full-scale virtual prototypes of cars. Retail is becoming tactile, beautifully bridging the gap between digital and physical browsing. And in education, students aren't just staring at flat pictures in a textbook anymore. They're intuitively manipulating floating DNA strands and tearing apart complex machinery right in thin air.
When you stack 2D limitations up against 3D solutions, the paradigm shift is just so obvious. In 2D, engineers usually discover spatial design flaws super late in the physical prototyping phase, which is frankly incredibly expensive. But with 3D solutions, interacting with full-scale prototypes virtually saves an immense amount of time and resources. It's a total game changer. And that is exactly why professionals across the globe are rapidly ditching flat screens for these layered, three-dimensional realities. And finally, Section 6, the glasses-free future.
You see, the ultimate goal isn't just building a better headset. It's removing the headset entirely and bringing 3D directly into the physical space of our rooms. The absolute peak of this concept is volumetric displays. These are systems that physically generate points of light within a transparent container. By using rapidly spinning screens or intersecting lasers that excite particles in a special medium, they literally paint a true 3D image in mid-air. Think of the holograms from your favorite sci-fi movies. This is that conceptually pure form of 3D display actually becoming an engineering reality.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Because to make holograms ubiquitous everywhere, we have to overcome some very real engineering hurdles. First up is the information bottleneck. If you try to divide a standard 4K resolution screen across, say, 64 different viewing angles, each eye is only getting a tiny pixelated fraction of that resolution. So we need panels that go way, way beyond today's standards. Then there's the enormous computational load required to render these insanely complex light fields in real time. On top of all that, we essentially have to rebuild the entire global content creation pipeline for native 3D from scratch and somehow figure out how to drive down the huge manufacturing costs of all these precision optical components.
But honestly, the payoff is going to be so worth it. As this technology matures, it's inevitably going to merge with augmented reality. This quote right here really captures it perfectly. The concept of the metaverse, or a persistent spatial internet, will rely on 3D displays to give digital spaces and objects a tangible presence in our living rooms. Think about it. AR glasses and glasses-free light field displays are on a collision course, and they're eventually going to make the traditional flat screen completely obsolete.
We have been looking at these flat, glowing windows into the digital world for over half a century now. But that window is finally opening up, allowing us to literally step through. So, I want to leave you with this lingering thought. When the flat screen finally dissolves for good, what are you going to choose to experience first in true 3D? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.